Welcome, everybody, to episode 38 of PT Shop Talk. On today's episode, we have a special guest, Ryan Zink, to talk about his journey into exercise and fitness. And then we finish up with our top 5 comedies from 2000 to 2005. With me, as always, is Nick. I'm Ron Burgundy, Doling, and Jeremy. What is this, a podcast for ants? Ben Kloppenberg. Welcome, gentlemen. Welcome, Ryan.
Welcome.
Hello.
Welcome.
Good to have a guest. I have to do way less work, so I hope you've prepared lots, because I've done nothing.
I've prepared little, but I'm ready to take questions.
You're totally prepared then. You're overqualified.
Yeah, do about as much work as Jeremy does around here.
So
ain't no thing.
We
just bring yourself.
We typically open the show when we have a guest. We just kind of do a lead in, just getting to know you a little bit. Hold on.
You got a special guest too?
Yeah.
I got
we have company.
We got a fifth guest.
Nice. I didn't prepare.
Well, just hold on a second. Talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
He has some parenting to do.
Yeah, right. But typically, we have guests. So just kind of tell us a little bit about yourself. Where's the journey? Where'd it go?
Right.
Where's it at?
Like we were talking before, another small town guy. Ended up at UND, or University of North Dakota. Played some football. Turns out I liked the strength and conditioning part as much or more. I was a better weightlifter than football player, so I got myself an internship. If I name drop, it'd be guys like Jared Nestlin and Nate Bockel. Really,
we love
me started.
Name dropping on this show.
Oh yeah, so
make sure they like and
Nate,
subscribe.
Only
Nate
if they like and follow.
Right. So Nate is the head of the strength and conditioning department at UND currently.
Oh.
And those guys got me going on the right track. In high school, there was always the desire, but of course, no knowledge, no rhyme or reason behind it. Just go hit the gym, and then you get to college, and it's organized and structured, and that's where I learned a lot. So, yeah. Very
cool. So you had the internship and then springboard that into some strength and conditioning stuff after that?
Yep. So it was hands-on. I worked with swimming, diving, track and field, got a job out in Fort Collins, Colorado State University. And after that, life happened and I ended back in North Dakota again. I'm not coaching my normal 9 to 5, but I still am involved. So yeah, cool. I miss it. I should have stuck it out, but that's all right.
That damn life comes right at you.
I know, right?
It really does.
So coaching my little guys youth football league, that'll have to do.
You can still get them under the weights. Fire them up. That's what I say.
Fire them up. Yeah.
Never.
What did I miss? I'm super sorry. We had everything all caught up. We're ready for top 5.
No, you're on.
Yeah, that was the whole show. That was the whole pod. It was good.
You were on dad duty. We just did a quick little intro, which we grew up together, man. You didn't miss anything. You knew all that.
Yep.
Yeah, I probably have
blanks in my mind.
More questions than you did. So
very
cool. Just a quick overview of what his journey was like. UND, CSU, back in Carrington. So
do you ever keep up with those CSU guys? Any of the old coaching staff, because Silberding was out there, right?
Yep. So very little. He's the director at Mary. Actually, when Mary started their strength and conditioning program, he moved back for that. Mike was is extremely loyal, and he was not going to go to a bigger university for a sideways move. At least in my opinion. Maybe I shouldn't speak for him, but when he got a chance to move close to his hometown of Napoleon and be the head guy there. So he's been
and
there.
From what I recall, those Napoleon Hosses, they had some type of funnel to Mary anyways. They had a lot of football players and wrestlers go over there.
Okay.
From what I can recall.
A lot of cheaters, if I remember.
He was a Valley City State Viking initially.
That's right.
Yeah. Before we met up at UND, and then I caught up with him at CSU, and then he went back to Mary.
Yeah.
You
find out how small the world is all the time, don't we?
Yep.
Well, very cool. I don't know. Do we have any social commentary to cover as a
You know, I have like one thing, especially with these comedy movies we're talking about today. You guys hear that they're thinking about doing like Happy Gilmore 2? You guys hear that? Yeah.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah. What do you guys think?
It'll
Any
probably
interest
be
at all?
straight to Netflix with
Isn't that his? Doesn't he have a gig that way, anyways?
Yeah, I think all his
seems
movies,
like it.
right? Anything he
Yeah.
produces is supposed to go right to Netflix. I don't know if he's still under that contract, I guess, but been lucrative to him. Would you guys watch it though? I mean, curiosity, or would you just hate it enough not to watch it?
I would have to check it out.
I don't
But
know.
that's dangerous. If it's not done well, it's going to be really, really bad.
I've never seen Zoolander 2 for that reason.
I have not seen that. I have not seen Anchorman 2. It's just Dumb and Dumberer. I don't think I've ever watched that either.
Yeah.
You know, it's just I don't know of a case where the second movie's better than the first.
Yeah,
or even on par.
Yeah, I don't even know of a case where the trailer looked good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like that's not even convince me.
I'd say comedy is really challenging that way. Like you got, because we talked about that too. Comedy's got to be so instinctual and like just guttural. You either make people laugh or you don't, And when it's a sequel, it's like you've kind of seen a lot of it, and it seems like especially those ones that wait so long, they just kind of redrum some of the hits from the first one and then try to throw some new stuff in and see if it works. And most of the time, I'd agree with you guys. Most of the time, it's less than that.
Yeah, I would say 22 Jump Street was maybe as good as the first one, if not a little better. I like that one actually.
I'll go with that.
That was good.
And this is probably a hot take, but I actually think the second American Pie is on par with the first one as well. But
I actually would have it ahead of it. I think it improved on some things. Maybe it makes an appearance later.
Oh gosh. Those are like the only two that stick out in my mind as like comedy sequels that are anyway decent. But
till Sandler makes Hubie Halloween 2.
Bar was pretty low with the first one, I guess.
Pass.
If you want to start at the bottom.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, are you ready to cue up the tunage with this or that?
Yeah, we'll do our get to know segment. I'm going to try to share some music so I don't have to add it in later like I always do. Let's hear that. We good?
Whoa.
We're moving on up.
Big time.
That's new. Yeah, we're doing it. We're doing it. So, Ryan, this is just a quick fire segment where we just ask questions. We'll go around robin. I'll start, then Jeremy, then Nick. You guys want to do it that way? Feel good?
Yeah.
Feel good that way?
Go.
All right.
Yeah.
We've each prepared roughly 5 questions. Is that right? You guys got 5? 5 in your in the barrel?
I got a few more just in case.
Yeah, same here. I got about 13.
Okay, let's shoot for 5 each, and we'll go from there. And this is the segment I like to call "Throwing Out Everything But the Kitchen Sink."
Oh,
well played.
Correct. All right. First question. Gotta switch my thing around here. Let's go with better pet, a raccoon or a python?
Oof. Raccoon. It's more snuggly.
Oh. Might have Ruby.
Jesus. He is
We're starting off
right?
with the really important stuff.
Yeah, I do.
We don't need to go down that road.
We had coon talk 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's fire through it.
Fireside chat.
All right, Jeremy.
Squats or deadlifts?
That's tough. Deadlift, only for its simplicity.
All right, I like it.
All right. Drinking coffee, Folgers,
Coffee,
Starbucks.
Oh, Starbucks. Still just straight black, not a candy coffee.
Okay, all right, got
That's
it.
Fair. Better Limp Bizkit song, Rolling Air Raid Vehicle or Rolling Urban Assault Vehicle?
Assault vehicle.
That's the correct answer.
Ooh, that's correct.
That is correct.
Better day, your birthday or Christmas?
Christmas. They're both cold, wintry days. But I gotta go Christmas.
I like it.
Better music to smash them weights to. Metallica. Hold on. It's this or that. Why? Metallica.
There's one answer.
You got to choose
there's
one.
Only one right answer.
Metallica or Slayer?
Metallica.
Got it.
All right. Next up is a geography question. Further distance from Green Bay, Wisconsin, Mount Elbert, Colorado, or Mount Mitchell, North Carolina? The Rockies versus the Appalachians. Which is further?
Ooh, I'm gonna go with Rocky Mountain High.
Yeah, Mount Elbert, 1,206 miles. Mount Mitchell, only 860. Learn something, gentlemen.
Ooh. I like that.
Lucky guess.
You're welcome.
If you could choose, would you see the future or go back and change something from the past?
See the future.
These guys are going very deep and existential.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go very simple for a couple of my comrades on here. Wrestling or basketball?
Oh, hoops for days.
Despite the fact that you mispronounced it, I'm going to go with wrestling.
All right. You still answered correctly.
Okay. That felt like a softball lob, Jeremy.
I know.
Hurt me too.
The warm-up question.
Me too. More essential tailgate accessory: the game's bags or straws made out of bratwursts.
Bags.
Well, that's the incorrect answer. But go on.
No.
Better use of your time: PT shop talk or reading a leather-bound book?
The leather-bound book smells better.
You don't know that.
But my whole home smells of Richmond.
Especially with a little bit of, especially with a scotch next to the fire. Yeah.
Nice tequila.
You might need scotch if you're around me too much. Dull the smell. This is a seasonal question here.
Okay.
Better horror film genre: vampires or werewolves?
Oh, I'm really indifferent about horror flicks. Most of them, but I gotta go vampires.
Okay. All
right.
There was no right or wrong on that.
Mostly because of Kiefer Sutherland.
Bingo. Lost Boys.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good. Yes. Same page.
Cry, little sister.
Thou shalt not kill.
All right. Last set of questions. Coming in at question number 5. Better look for Nick Doling: frosted tips or puka shell necklaces?
Frosted tips.
There was no wrong answer.
Those are
they're
those
all
are
great
not.
looks.
Those were not.
All great
those were.
looks.
Those actually collaborated very well. They were not mutually exclusive.
One had to look a little nicer. I like the honesty.
Lock them together. Lock them together, and that's how you get married with 4 kids. That's all I'm gonna say there.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I've never been one to argue that.
Are you a big party guy or are you a small gathering guy?
Probably small gathering.
I thought they were all ragers in Carrington.
Well, there's plenty.
Depends on if the raccoons come out or not.
That's right. 20 years ago, but I just dated myself.
Yeah. Yes. Those were the days. We'll probably touch on that later.
Yeah.
This is a closing call here. You got to be careful on this one. Bison or the Sioux?
I know who has more success recently, but I'm sticking with my guys, the Sioux.
All right, Casey.
Loyal. I like it.
Might be unpopular opinion, but it is what it is.
I can appreciate loyalty. I got no problem with that.
Yeah. Loyal to a fault. I love it. I love it. You ace
teams you enjoy can suck. That's okay.
This is not going to end well. I'm feeling it right now.
Hey, they just they took it to Missouri State this last weekend, right? That was a surpriser. Maybe UND's on the up and up.
Could be.
Mm-hmm. We just never know. Fighting Hawks.
Any given Saturday.
All right. Well, on to kind of the main topic. You handled that one very, very well, Ryan.
So this is one of those things that I'm passionate about, and I can get a little long-winded. So you fire questions, and if I start to stray or get long-winded, you reel me back in.
We will. Oh yeah, we segue well on this show. We think we've got that down to an art form.
We're really known for our transitions.
Yeah.
Going back, we're gonna focus mainly on that strength and conditioning background. And for everybody, who goes into that field, they have to have an introduction to it somewhere. So I know you, we grew up together, but as you best recall, from your recollection, what first drew you to like weight training back in Carrington in those early mid 90s?
I gotta say, I got an older brother that, when you're junior high-ish age, I think most people looked up to their big brother. So when he said, "Hey, you gotta lift weights and we gotta, da 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 da," I always liked sports, so anything that was going to help me there, it wasn't hard to convince me. So, like I say, before all the desire, just zero knowledge.
Yeah,
but we went and did it. We got after it.
With very little. I mean, I think about it. Very little like on the floor tutelage.
Sure.
Right. It was like as I've said it before. I mean, a lot of it was from some standard powerlifting stuff, like squats were always there. Back squats were always a key component. I think we had to do them. Depth, maybe not. Back in those days,
typical half squat, I'm sure.
We got the old coach. We got some old Coach Townsend stories. I'm sure we could tell.
Yeah,
they're slapping down a folding chair and get your ass down there. And then it's depth.
Was that folding chair going to hold your body weight and all those plates if things failed? That seems like a
me at 150 pounds, squatting 135. Folding
chair would have been okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. Right. I'm getting to be big enough now where I question every folding chair I sit in.
Breach.
Yeah. I mean,
where's the weight rate on this?
It was, and we've talked here. We all had kind of like Canby, Matt at Carrington. I mean, they were all fairly humble weight rooms and stuff like that. And it's kind of funny. You're right on the money. We kind of had to do our own thing and get the key from Coach Hochhalter when we could. And it was so cloak and dagger back then because the rules were strict on how much like contact hours coaches could have with athletes. So you remember that? We'd have to he'd put it in the mailbox and we'd have to go there and discreetly take it out.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Well, the other one was, Jerry Schneider would just go there and open the gym because he would work out then.
Yeah.
He wouldn't necessarily coach up, but it was available.
Yep, that's true.
So I don't think it didn't technically count as coaching hours.
Yeah.
It was just we just happened to be at the same place as him at the same time.
That's true. That is true. He was a good, you look back, we're kind of lucky to have a kind of little meathead like him as far as that goes. Because none of the I don't picture any of the other guys training. He was about the only guy.
He was the only one.
Yep. Putting in his Lover Boys. He had Lover Boys greatest hits, and he had Bon Jovi Crossroads. those were like the, if you were going to be in there, that's what he would put in. It had to be 80s rock. So kind of laid some foundations there too. A lot of fun. Yeah. So then, as we moved on, and when did you kind of recognize that? Kind of you wanted to make that leap into exercise science and go that route. Was that right away out of high school, or did that take a little time?
No, that's, it was the typical, I'm going to go to college because that's what we're supposed to do and I'll figure it out. Mm-hmm. And as a redshirt freshman, we had some tough workouts. And I think the one day we're sitting in the hallway wringing wet with sweat after the workout, trying to catch our breath. And the coach came out there and he was, firm but fair type guy. But after the weight room, after the work was done, he came out and was just cool as a cucumber, chatting it up. And I was like, dude, how do you get that job?
Yeah.
And I
that's
just,
cool.
he goes, well, we'll get you an internship here someday, maybe, you know, when you're ready.
Yeah.
And yeah, fast forward a few months and there I was.
Very cool.
It was that easy. I mean, it was, if you're a redshirt freshman, the training is tough. You know, you're not going to play. So they whip you into shape, teach you how to squat, teach you how to power clean.
Well, that's what I was going to, so you got me thinking of another great question, I think. So what was when you, I mean, this is a long time ago now, but when you made that transition from high school to college sports, what was the biggest shock for you culture-wise, like as far as training goes?
It wasn't recreational anymore. It was a job.
Mm-hmm.
You're part of the team. And if you want to continue to be part of this team, this is what we're doing. So at 6 a.m, you get here and you get here on time. You know, Nick, you know me, I'm usually casually late, rolling in about 5 minutes after the time.
Yeah, dude, I'm pretty sure you have like Mexican blood.
Yeah, that doesn't
you're
fly.
like always on your own time.
Right. That doesn't fly. So yeah, it was a job. And there were rules. Yeah. And but I learned a lot that their way of teaching worked.
Yeah. You kind of, you go on or you get along, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have reminders for being late? Did they have any good
reminders? That's cute. Yes. We had
what was your worst reminder that you had for anybody being late?
Boy. Well, I was one of them. It was legitimate, actually. I was sick. Yeah, but I didn't check in before. I notified them that I was ill after the workout. So the next workout that I was able to attend, I did sprints and up downs, and I was so exhausted. They went ahead and laid a mat down for me because I was doing up downs and they didn't want me to break my nose on the gym floor. But we kept going. They just gave me the courtesy of a mat.
That's nice.
That was fun. That was good times.
Bunch of sweethearts.
Yeah,
and then I wanted that job.
It's almost not
more.
like a punishment at that point.
I know, right? It's just a reminder.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, next time, let's be early or call early.
Yes.
Yeah.
You'll usually only endure that once, and that's enough.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's it. I mean, that's a big transition from where we were at. You're right. I mean, I don't even know how to describe it from back then, but like we were kind of encouraged to train.
Yeah.
But like there was no program, no structure, no expectation. No. Just like, oh, it's great. You guys were here. Every now and again, I remember we'd be running fourth quarters and Coach Hochul would be like, I saw Nick and JR, like, you know, because we were in the fat lineman group. So not you speedsters, but we were in our little corner. But he'd be like, I at least saw those guys training. And he'd be like, yeah, well, holy shit, somebody actually saw that. You know?
Feels my thing is now when I tell the kids, and I have to do this every spring when school's about to let out, I said, listen, we've made good progress. We got to keep training over the summer because football's right around the corner. I said, and we can go about this two ways. Right? Either way, you're going to pay the price. I said, you can slack in the summer and show up at 2-a-day practices and pay the price, or you can do it my way, pay the price little by little over the course of the summer and show up in shape and show the coach what you got. Or you can suffer in the middle of August. Take your pick. That's my spring end of the school year sales pitch to
Billy badass to those guys.
Yeah, I always chose to suffer. I had way too much cool stuff.
I thought you guys were clanging and banging up in Maddox.
Clanging and banging
Dave
beers.
Say that? You had the hip sled and all that.
Yeah, that was during the season. And August to November, my butt was on the field. But after that, that's my time, baby.
It's Miller time.
Yeah. Those Coors Light pounders and bonfire smoke, and my lung capacity was like 12% by the time the season started.
Wow.
Might as well have been a smoker.
Yeah. Yeah. To bring these guys, Ryan referenced something, and just to share with the other guys, I'm sure you're the main guy, like the only guy our bus was waiting for away events, where visitors, whether it's football or wrestling. So you do have that distinction. Yeah, I appreciate you all these years later kind of owning that. Because we couldn't really leave without the all-state running back. That's not going to help us win the big game.
If I'd have got left once, maybe I'd have learned my lesson sooner.
You'd come barreling ass into that gravel parking lot in that old was it a Crown Vic?
Little fun fact for you guys who don't know, I was voted worst car my senior year.
What, did
83 Crown Vic with a few dents in her.
Man,
ooh, it was hot.
That's a sweet car. You could have entered every demo derby in the state in one with that thing.
It's funny you say that because that's where that car ultimately ended up.
No
joke. Yeah.
Well, they had to outlaw those suckers later because they just wouldn't break.
It's like a tank, man.
Yeah.
It was like police cars they utilized Ford Crown Vics for a while, didn't they? Yeah. Reminiscing. So what got you to Colorado State back then? That was 06, right?
Yeah, 6-ish. Yeah. Well, I mean, I had been applying to different schools, and I almost ended up in California, and my boss goes, if I'm being honest with you, when you finish your master's and you get your full-time gig, a lot of these schools are going to want to have football experience, and they don't have it. He goes, you'd be with, D1 men's basketball. That's great. He goes, if it were me, I'd take a school with football. So it's funny you mentioned Silbernagle earlier. He just happened to land in Fort Collins.
Okay.
So that's what got me the interview, right? Who gets you a job, and what keeps your job type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So he helped me get my foot in the door there.
Gotcha.
What was your master's in?
Kinesiology.
Yeah. And what was your undergrad degree?
Physical education, exercise science. Okay. Yep.
Very cool.
So my hands-on, I actually, as an undergrad, that's my phone.
We're going to ask that you please mute all electronic devices.
I was at a wedding this weekend, and I almost forgot to silence my phone. That could have been worse.
Were you on time to the wedding?
I was. Actually, I had a drink with the groom beforehand. We had plenty of time. Yep.
Doesn't need reminders anymore, Jeremy.
No.
Up downs.
We'll silence that and get back to it. Nick has kids. I just have a cell phone that interrupts.
Yeah.
A little jealous, actually. Did you feel like and maybe this is something we can talk about as we go, but did you feel like your undergrad and your master's degree prepared you for the job, or do you feel like playing college sports prepared you for the job?
Honestly, there were, I had to take anatomy, physiology, all those things. One of my advisors, who actually was the coach for the Australian national team, so he coached like marathon and distance runners and stuff. So when it came to aerobic conditioning, Dr. Brinkert was the man, and I loved it. Yeah. So I'm the guy who could get an A in advanced exercise physiology 2 and get a C in world history because I didn't want to be there.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So my classes seemed to help, but honestly, with the internship, I got like 10 undergrad credits for working in the weight room, and just being around those guys, that many hours a day, in and out. They critiquing your power clean, your snatch, your squat, your front squat, drilling you on your programming. It's not necessarily wrong, but why? That was one of the things I learned. Without picking apart somebody else's program, and finding differences and telling them how, you should, be an Olympic lifting snob, or you need to do more of this or that. It's more like find the similarities, ask them why they do that, and they probably have a justification. If it's because I saw the biggest guy at the gym do that one time, you probably need to find a better reason. So anyway, my internship probably prepared me the most for it.
Makes sense.
Cool. So you weren't just pulling out August's Ironman and going by whatever the workout was.
Right.
That's how I lived.
And they gave me enough responsibility to, other than, hey, just new guy, go wipe down all the equipment. They actually let me do stuff.
Yeah.
Very cool.
That was great.
That's nice.
That's like a big, I've been back listening to a lot more Jocko Willink stuff again. And he's big on that too. Like when if you have somebody who shows some leadership potential or who has some capacity, continue to learn and develop, give them stuff to do. Like, give them responsibility, and not just something that's like you said cleaning up, and he talked about cleaning toilets in the book, but it's more just about like feed somebody, give them a chance. And if they screw up, they screw up, right?
Yeah.
But hopefully they don't, and hopefully they develop and learn. And even if they do screw up, even if you screw up, rarely is it ever that big of a deal, and you learn more from your mistakes anyhow. Kind of reinforces the good stuff.
Right.
That's fail forward, god darn it.
I like it.
Forward. So then when you were at CSU,
motivating,
got
Jeremy.
in.
Thank you.
Got in, you gave the shout out to Silbernagle. And then what sports were you coaching when you were there?
Swimming, diving, track and field, and golf were my main responsibilities. But then, of course, we all assisted with football.
Yeah.
And then, occasionally help with men's basketball, volleyball. So we all helped each other out, but those were my main sports.
How
responsible for program design, communicating with the coaches, and very, very hands-on. Those were mine.
Now I know this is a little bit ago, but to the best of your recollection, I mean, how different were those programs from, say, football to swimming?
There's some considerations that a lot of it was still ground-based, right? The football player and the swimmer are still going to squat, but the expectation is a little bit different when you've got a 300-pound lineman and a 120-pound swimmer. The expectations are a lot different. The standard is still there. You still want them to perform it really well.
I like that.
But I mean, I think one of the things on the bullet list was sports specificity, if that exists. I think most people confuse it with being sports simulation, which you don't want to do. For me, when you get an 18-year-old girl out of high school, a swimmer, not to be insulting, but she's weak, right? Right. It's
hot takes
in general, not
shots fired.
And I'm not comparing her to the football player. That's not a fair comparison. I'm comparing her to her senior in college who's been in the program for a while, right?
Gotcha.
So
good clarification.
Yep. So a lot of shoulder prehab.
Yeah.
The swimmers, they're probably quad dominant. So we train a little extra hamstrings. I loved working with the swimmers, but some of the dryland training was almost comical. They swim like a fish, and they are masters in the water. And you get them out of the water, and it's impressively bad sometimes. It's comical, but it doesn't necessarily carry over. And to be a good, well-rounded athlete, we did some of that stuff, in their off season. I did have one swimmer tell me nothing really changed from high school to college. My practices were just as hard in high school. She goes, but I PR'd in everything. She goes, the one thing that changed is that I lifted weights. So I gotta thank you. It can be a thankless job. The thank yous come in the form of conference championships and the camaraderie and the the W on the scoreboard. But after her first year, she acknowledged that, and I thought, wow, that really stuck with me.
Yeah, and we're so similar in that with that viewpoint, because I look at it as a blessing to have. I think we did 3 years in a row where we were able to load up and devote one particular class to just swimmers down here in Marshall for elite performance. And it was so interesting. We would get approached. I would get approached by like a couple of the parents. There's usually one or two parents that are the most, kind of vocal, the drivers of it, the organizers of it. And they're like, we really want a specific swimmer-specific program. And the girls love what you did last year. And I'm like, yeah, I can do that. And everything still ended up being a lot of the same stuff that we did with everybody else, with the exception of one thing you said, boom, boom, shoulder prehab, doing some posterior chain stuff there. Emphasizing some of the weak points, I guess. But yeah, getting them to be just a more well-rounded athlete, and power is power. Right now, I know it doesn't. You're talking. There's obviously differences when you're trying to do, a backstroke. versus running a 40. But at the same time, when you're trying to kick out and blast off for that first initial push, I mean, you need power. You know, your legs need power, and you're still going to assess,
Absolutely.
like, still have some benchmark assessments. You can still do broad jump, vertical jump. And just because and I tell this to wrestlers too that I train, like, I'm not doing that so that you become a basketball player and dunk a basketball. I'm testing that because we want to assess your power, your ability to generate force, and, you know, create space. And then they kind of like, okay, whatever. But
and kids all wrestlers want to play basketball, but that's neither here nor there.
They just wish, Jeremy.
It depends on it depends on who it is you're talking to. Like, squatting itself is just a good movement, right? So I always tell people, I'm not trying to turn you into a power lifter. You're not interested in squatting 500, and I don't care if you ever do or not, but it's a great exercise. So whether you're, you know, the teenage athlete or whatever, I put on a little seminar, and there's a bunch of people about health and wellness and this and that. And it's funny, we're not going to call it weightlifting, we'll call it resistance training. That way all the soccer moms feel better about
more
it. More
digestible.
And, more digestible. And we're talking about this, and the one guy from the ambulance was there, and I said, so squatting is great. You know, getting yourself off the toilet, for example, is a function of strength when you get older. I go, so it sounds funny to get stuck on the toilet until you have to go there and get them off of there. And I looked over at Chad, the ambulance guy, and he goes, yeah, seen me do it. Like, it's not very funny. So, you know, nobody has to squat 500, but let's be strong enough to,
or everyone deadlifts,
to be independent.
You got to pick stuff up off the floor, right? Like, everyone deadlifts or some component of it, right? Like,
you want to pick up your kids or your grocery bags?
Yep. It's just the terminology. Yeah, you're right. Having resistance training much more digestible.
Sure.
So, but
that's interesting. So, as like a strength conditioning coach, specialist, was the philosophy or the goal to prevent injury, or was it to improve performance, or did that change as the year would go on with the athletes? You know, is that always in the back of your mind? Was it a piece of it? I'm always curious on that. Like you said, you don't want to just have them go do what they're going to do at practice. You're working on other things. So, is that?
I mean, absolutely both. Injury prevention, sports performance. You know, a PT probably has a more eloquent way of stating it, but for me, if you have bigger, stronger muscles surrounding a joint, it's safer. Right?
Yeah.
So I take the healthy kids or athletes and make them bigger, stronger, faster. And then if they get dinged up, they go down to the training room or go to you guys for therapy.
Yeah.
You know, so I was fortunate where I had young, athletic, for the most part, very talented kids. And especially at a big program like Alabama, we've talked about this before, that the strength coach, you don't necessarily need to look up to that guy. They get the best recruits in the country. As long as you don't screw these kids up and hurt them, they'll make you look good. I want to go talk to the D3 strength coach who's got to develop these kids, right? Or even
that's a good take.
I hate to say it, but the Bison strength coach has been there for a long time, and he's developed a lot of kids. They got a hell of a program. So I don't get impressed. You know, at a conference we had, everybody wants to hear from the, you know, national champs football strength coach. Ooh, what does this guy have to say? Packed in there. Well, the one year is the dude from Texas. Okay. First of all, his nickname was Mad Dog. I shouldn't be dogging on him, but I'm like, seriously, that's your name? And you want to be taken seriously at this conference? But whatever.
It's Mr. Mad Dog.
Mr. Mad Dog.
Yeah, it is Coach Mad Dog.
Mr. Dog.
Right. So Mr. Dog. So he had the pleasure of working with Ricky Williams, the Heisman Trophy winner back in the day. And apparently Ricky would just peek his head in. Ricky would peek his head in, give him the sup coach, and walk right out. Well, if he's the Heisman Trophy winner, what are you going to say? I don't know. If the position coach doesn't have your back and make this kid lift weights, what do? Your hands are tied. He's going to go be the best football player in the country, whether he lifts weights that day or not.
Yeah, that sounds like the Jamarcus Russell program.
Right. But that mentality is toxic, right? You can't have
totally.
Because the whole rest of the team goes, what the hell? I'd bust my ass.
Now I totally hear what you're saying, but now that's something I probably can see a lot of where you're right. Now the last few weeks.
Oh, now he's gonna get all crotchety.
Hang on.
Crotchety, I don't need to get crotchety.
Nick is gonna defend Ricky Williams because he did the same thing. He peeked in the weight rooms, like, "What's up, coach?"
You coach.
And then walked out and then kicked everybody's ass.
No,
anyway.
I did. No, what? No. What I was gonna say is Jalen Hurts now.
I was just thinking
with that Monday Night Football game where he kind of beat up the Vikes, and then they cut to that video like twice of him squatting 600 pounds as a quarterback.
And one was in high school. So
500 was in high school, and then 600 was with his first. And I just found this out.
I think it was like 595 or whatever.
Yeah.
Is that all?
Couldn't find enough little weights in there.
What was cool about that is he said he was just asked about that on the Manning brothers. They do that Manning cast during Monday Night Football.
Yeah.
So a couple nights ago, they were asking him about it because they're both, they're quarterbacks. They're like, we didn't never do nothing like that, and they're like, so what? But why? They're like, why'd you do that? And he said that he just transferred from Alabama to Oklahoma, and he was just being encouraged by his teammates just to see what he could do. And he thought, he went in and wanted to prove that, he puts in the hard work, puts in the hard hours, and could come in and be an immediate leader on that team. And I'm like, okay, I can kind of see that a little bit more. What are your thoughts on a quarterback squatting 600 pounds?
But some people are, yeah, especially in Carrington, North Dakota. That's the standard.
Probably got too deep there.
Put them on a plaque on the wall for sure.
Some people are just freakishly gifted, and what seems like a monstrous amount of weight for us is just another good hard day of work. So quarterbacks generally do not, but when you're explosive and you have good technique and you want to rally the troops and fire up your team and you put 600 on your back, I guess impressive. If you got spotters, it's extremely impressive. But there's a lot of programs where
he got hit by like 3 dudes on the 4-yard line that game, and you saw that power. He just went right through him.
There's a lot of programs, depending on the position you play, they might say something like, "Hey, if you squat 700, you know what? You don't need to be here. We don't need to take that additional risk. If you can bench 500, you know what? Just you're all set for the semester." When you hit certain benchmarks, they're like, and I hate to say this because it discourages people from working out. You realize these marks are set super high. They're like, you're strong enough to play Division I football. Maybe your time is better spent watching
movement
film.
Competency, film,
yes.
skill development.
Yes. Sure.
They're probably not gonna lose that over a few months either.
Not to the degree that it's going to matter. So your squat max went from 700 to 600. Yeah, you're still pretty gifted.
A little bit left in the tank at that point.
Yeah,
I love your point on that though too, because since you follow sports, sports journalism, sports media in the last few weeks, they've talked about that. Like 600 pounds, like it's the same number, right? But like you said, there's levels to like squatting, and there's dudes that power lift that can squat over 1,000 pounds.
It's all relative. Yeah.
Yep. It's all relative. And I love that. That's so,
I mean,
true.
If you squat 500 in Carrington, you are an absolute monster. You go to these powerlifting meets and you're just a guy. It's just another like, hey, nice to meet you. 500. Yeah. Nobody cares. Honestly, I mean,
nice warm-up set.
Yeah. I went to a meet in Colorado, and the guy traveled from Washington to do his first meet after an injury. If I'm not mistaken, I think he tore his quad, Nick.
Oh, really?
And in the warm-up room, this guy was like a silverback gorilla that escaped from his cage. And he went out there and he hit 700 and went, I'm good. He didn't even take his next 2 attempts and went, yeah, I don't want to get hurt. So 700 it is.
Well,
that was enough.
That ain't bad.
Yeah.
That's nice. I ain't at 700, but I'll say that's the one thing. Squatting heavy is the one thing that's still in my head. And I didn't even, I didn't get injured squatting by any means, but that's the mechanism in which, whereas I'm going to the descent into the hole, I'm like, man, I'm just getting a little antsy here. Like your brain's just running 1,000,000 miles an hour, and you're like, I better just short hop this one. I can't it. All that stuff was said in my brain, obviously.
I like that. Did you ever find, like you said you worked with golf?
I did.
Did you ever find some of those golf guys had that like mindset of like, I don't want to get too bulky, or like worried that it's going to affect that fine-tuned swing of theirs? Or did people like Tiger kind of blow that out of the water and the young kids were like, it's fine, you can get beefy?
Golfers weren't as motivated in the weight room, but I think they saw the value in it. I didn't get a lot of pushback. I didn't have them banging heavy power cleans and stuff. We might do some med ball chops and some other things,
rotation stuff.
Related to what they were doing a little bit.
Sure.
That's a great point, Case, because golf was like that until Tiger came around, and not even early Tiger. It was more mid-prime Tiger, where he, what did you say, like 02, 03, 04, he started showing up and had guns and had a thick chest. And then they started to report, oh man, I can't remember his feats of strength anymore. There were some, again, it's all relative. So to the golfing world, him squatting like 400 pounds was like, oh my gosh, like this is Superman is now here, right?
I get that a lot though. Like, well, I don't want to be big and bulky. And it's like, especially from women, I go, you don't have the hormones to get big and bulky. By most standards, they say, well, I just want to tone up. Okay, can you define what muscle tone is?
Yeah.
And they just, well, said, do you want a well-developed muscle not covered by a lot of fat? Yeah, that's what we want.
Great
so we're gonna have to do some resistance training, sell it, use the proper terminology. We're gonna have to do some resistance training, and we're gonna develop that muscle. So
just a sly son of a bitch.
Well,
I like it.
I want a resistance train. Sounds way better than weightlifting.
As we look to kind of wrap this up, and I'm just super appreciative for our friendship and your time tonight and everything like that. It's really been really cool catching up.
Are we wrapping up already for real?
Well, we're gonna move on. We're gonna find some way in here. We're gonna find a segue in the top 5. We're gonna figure this out.
Okay, we'll get there.
But so now when you're looking at like prescribing a program for, and let's just say like high school age athletes, kind of middle school, high school age athletes, what are the big key cornerstone lifts or movements that you would say give the most benefit to that population?
I like total body lift about 3 days a week.
Okay.
If I program the best 5-day-a-week program in the world and they don't make time for it, it doesn't work, right? So 3 days a week is very doable. They can recover. I like total body because at that age, I think frequency is probably more important than intensity.
Okay.
So we might squat 3 days a week.
Yeah.
But there's a different emphasis. One day it's a heavy-ish squat. And then the next day it might be a, light to moderate, you'd call it dumbbell or goblet squat.
Yeah.
And then the next day it's like, hey, we're going to do some lunges, just banging out with your body weight. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Don't even worry about the weight. So that would, squatting, hip hinging. So whether we're teaching hang cleans, just doing a stiff-legged deadlift, RDL, kettlebell swing type of thing. Okay. Hip hinging is big. So people want to talk about like it's arm day or back day. I don't really do that. I focus more on the movement.
Yeah.
So depending on where they're at in their training, it might be, Olympic movement, then a squat, then a hip hinge, upper body press. So again, every day of the week would have a different emphasis. One day it might be heavy-ish, right? Relative term, bench. And then one day it might be push-ups. And then the other day it'd be, standing overhead press.
Gotcha.
So where are we at? Squat, hinge, push, upper body pull. So as you can imagine, most teenagers love to bench and do bicep curls and probably don't do their pull-ups.
Yeah, it doesn't change much anywhere.
There's some almost 40-year-old therapists that feel the same way.
Right. So so
it's just not the design on the shirt, gentlemen.
Yeah.
I saw some tricep popping through the sleeve.
They're padded.
There's variations to pull-ups, imagine pogo jumps.
Yeah.
Right. Yep. So not much with the knees and the hips, but just in the ankle. So you get yourself started doing a pogo jump and finish with your arms. I call those big guy pull-ups or cheater pull-ups. Right.
Yeah.
You're going to take a sophomore that plays offensive line and expect him to do 4 sets of 15 pull-up.
Yeah.
Probably not going to happen. Right. So we do big guy pull-ups. And then the fifth one that I really like is some sort of glute hamstring, posterior chain, hip bridge, something. Because like I said, a lot of those kids are quad dominant, relatively weak in the hamstring. And for me, that's a good place to start. And then if you want to talk about, well, now instead of doing RDLs, we're doing power cleans, and now we're using chains on the bench, and all these things, the different deadlift variations. And yep. So I mean, there's a million ways to skin a cat, but that's the kind of the 5 categories, the big 5 that I always try to hit with these kids.
Very cool.
You feel like you need, and I'm sure this gets asked a lot by coaches, do you feel like you need to specifically train core with kids, or do you feel like just using these big, heavy movements, full body, multi-joint movements is good enough?
It depends on the kid. The other thing, the 6th component would be like your weak point, or like very individualized. That's where I guess you'd say it's sport specific. So a wrestler, we have this little neck circuit, or the kid who's really, really tight in the hips. When I say, hey, the whole team is going to go do this, I want you to grab that band and hook it up like this, and this is your thing, right? So what was your question again?
Do you feel like training core specifically is
core
worthwhile?
So, yes, some kids, yeah, absolutely. I think planking is underrated, right? There's got to be a certain level of strength there. So if you can't do, we'll say, jump in the back extension machine and do 3 sets of 15 and superset that with like 3 sets of 15 on some ab crunch variation. If you can't do that without shaking like a leaf, I'm sorry, you're relatively weak. Like, hot take again, but what makes you think you're ready to go play varsity football and get banged around if you can't do this?
Yeah, great point. You gotta have a foundation still, right?
And I went to a conference that Dave Tate put on at Elite FTS. And one of the guys said he coaches high school football in Ohio, and in order to earn the right to put a squat bar on your back, you need to grab a 50-pound dumbbell and be able to do 50 reps on a goblet squat. You don't even get to put a bar on your back till then.
I think that's like a John Russin thing too.
Sure.
He's like,
lots of little standards can be set, to say, hey, now you're strong enough to do X, Y, and Z. Welcome to the club.
Yeah, that's great. I see that all the time in PT school. I teach musculoskeletal with these kids, and a lot of times we'll go through case studies, and maybe we're on back, and they'll be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have them start on planks or something. But when they went through the eval, they never even assessed the patient's ability to do a plank, and we ask, like, why would you do that? Well, there's trying to hit those muscles, turn those muscles on. It's like, do you even know if they're weak? Like, if you didn't test it, like, why are you starting there? So no, I love that answer, because I think whether it's us, athletic training, personal training, strength and conditioning, like, you need to use your brain and check out what these athletes can do, and don't just plug them and play. So
one of my biggest things is the terminology that you use. It drives me crazy when, whether it's a volunteer dad or a coach, if you're listening, they're more of a cheerleader. Don't tell the kid to go, go, go. You need to tell him how. If he's not moving correctly, you need to take your words and make it into his actions, right? He doesn't need a cheerleader. He needs to be told how. So, and one of the things, Nick, to your credit, we're talking about planking. When you say hanging on your joints, that one actually hits home. Some of these kids, you can say, okay, don't hang on your joints, and they don't get it. Or better yet, when we're doing a hip hinge exercise, okay, pin your shoulder blades back, stick your chest out, X, da, 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 da. There's all kinds of cues. If that doesn't hit home with the kid, what works for me is no camel humps. And you go smack them in the mid back where their back is humped up, and all of a sudden they go whoop, straight right up.
Kicking their butt.
You have to, you as a coach have to find the right cues. So that kid, you know, and a lot of times they say it louder. And then the third time they get a little angrier, and it's like, no. Don't get mad at him. He doesn't understand what you're saying.
100%.
This is up to you to teach him the way he learns.
One of the biggest challenges down here the last few years is that we've worked, you know, we've kind of handed off the program over time, but I've still like kind of owned the summer one. And I've tried to bring in other guys to assist with that because I just can't devote 5 straight hours, 3 days a week to it. And we have one guy who's like really polished, really kind of gets it. They're both athletic trainers by profession. And the other gentleman, it was his first time doing it, comes from like kind of our background a little bit, classical football, wrestling background from kind of northeastern Minnesota. And man, I started recognizing within week 2 though, he's like barking at kids all the time. And I'm like, nah, that's not exactly like, I don't know, that's not my philosophy with it, right? And if a kid's not picking, especially if it's a skill thing, especially if it's a form thing, if they're not getting it, it's not them, and yelling at them more is not, like, they want to get better. Like these kids like want to get better. And I think the culture shifted so hard in these last few years, whole nother topic, but like, you know, they're not there because their parents are forcing them. They're there because they like truly just want to have that edge. They want to learn. So if they're not getting something, it's because we're doing a crap job of kind of breaking it down for that individual, right?
Or that particular exercise, they're not ready for that. Instead of doing an RDL, maybe they should be doing back extensions and hip bridges because they are physically not strong enough to do what you're asking them to do.
Yeah. Something to bridge it, right? Yeah.
Right.
But then the problem is you have between, right? Like everyone's on a different spot as far as education wise, right? Like you in a weight room, you might, I don't know what your ratio is for athletes in there, but like that gets hard to break down in Q when you got 35 kids and it's you and maybe 2 other coaches, right? And then you talk parents, and then a lot of cases the education is, well, we won 2 state championships back in the day doing this, and my coach yelled at me. So, you know, and just the ability to have understand that there does need to be movement competency before you're loading things up. Loading things up to make everything better. That's a challenge.
And I like that take on testing. When you guys were mentioning the test, like you gotta kind of tease it out, test it out a little bit. And we've talked a lot about like injury prevention, somebody not being ready. But on the flip side, now the other side of that spectrum, sometimes you got to test it out because you're not pushing them enough. You could be holding them back or not giving them enough if you don't actually like test them out, dose it accordingly. You know, so you're still trying to do, I've got a 5x3 scheme today, right? I'm back. Kid gets done with all 5 and he's still, maybe he was feeling he was only at like 60, 65%, right?
Yeah.
Like so, you gotta kind of, there's nuances to the whole thing. And there's a skill, just like we always talk about therapy, there's a skill and there's an art to what you're trying to do, a science to it, and just constantly melding them together.
I love that. To your point, in my program design, the first week is usually lighter, second week is moderate, and that third week, it's like, hey, stick to the numbers. These percentages should work for these sets and reps. This is what I want you to do. This is what you're capable of. And if the third week you're still cruising through this, go nuts. You add your own weight. So those little adjustments along the way, it keeps them in weeks 1 and 2, it keeps them hungry to do more. And on week 3, that's their little test of, okay, am I making it too easy for you? And I give them the leeway to go ahead and add whatever it is, you know, you want to do. So I like I like that. It gives them, like I said, weeks 1 and 2, the motivation, and week 3, some ownership in the program.
Yeah, that's very cool.
And then I'll print a new sheet and start over again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a great point, because I would say on our end from physical therapy, we probably underdose patients big time.
A lot.
100%.
And I'm not going to crap on 3 sets of 10. Like, I don't care if you do 3 sets of 10, but like, it should be challenging. Like, if you do 3 sets of 10 and you're like, how many more reps do you think you could do? And they're like, I don't know, 20, 30.
Yeah.
Like, okay. You're like, we need to move on, you know?
I worked with this awesome patient with Guillain-Barré today, though, and we're always kind of like, how hard was that? And I'm like, I finally transitioned to like lifting and carrying and stuff like this. And I asked her, I'm like, well, how challenging was that? She's like, just right. And I'm like, God, you've been here before. Because if you're like, oh, it's pretty easy, you know what's coming, you know, it's always we're gonna find another way, you know, to add off of it. But yeah, I hear you, man. There's too much of that, like, let's start you with some red TheraBand and just go with this. Now, I might do the same thing, but I might dose the shit out of it and go like 30 reps on, you know, low resistance, high rep for like when we're rehabbing like a rotator cuff or something like that, for example.
Yeah, and I think there's some nuance to there. I mean, if we have healing tissue, obviously,
totally.
And
volume can be a bitch too. Volume can be worse than anything.
Yeah,
that's what makes me sore.
Yeah, you get these, you know, stenotic patients, or, you know, these chronic back pain patients, and like I feel like we treat them like we do post-ops, and people are just like, well, let's go light. 3 sets of 10 we'll start at 1 pound, and, you know, next week maybe we'll do 2. Like, oh man, test them, see what they can do.
Yeah.
Like,
it's so, and some of those figures too, like in the real world, it's so light. I mean, it's so light.
Yeah.
It's almost funny how light it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Almost comical. Almost comedic.
Well, again,
question for you guys.
Yeah.
We're talking about coaching cues and methods and stuff. And I was just thinking about this. In my coaching journey, at first I was like a parrot, right? So I heard my mentor say this. So this is what I'm going to tell these kids, right? I'm just parroting. I don't know shit. Yeah. I'm just parroting what, you know, the smart guy said. Yeah, and then gurus, I go through some pretty intense redshirt freshman training and an Army basic training. And I got a little bit ornerier, I guess. And I think part of that is I got to start young. So a lot of these athletes are about the same age. And in order to not like be friendly or get asked out on dates or something stupid like that, I was a little well, that actually happened once. So it was weird. But no.
Listen to the After Hours podcast.
Quid pro quo.
Follow us on Patreon. $5 to get that story.
So I was a bit standoffish and probably rude. I was more of a drill instructor, and I found that's not necessarily even at the college level. That's not the best way. They're not as receptive. And
I wouldn't say you're unique there, because there's a stigma of, like, you know, the surround strength conditioning coaches that, you know, there's a lot of psychopathic tendencies.
Well,
it wasn't called Calm Dog. Good dog.
Awesome
Zen dog.
Self-proclaimed nicknames. And now I honestly take the approach more of a teacher. I should probably do a little the rah raise your voice, get them pumped up stuff, but they're there. I don't have college kids now. They're there by choice, voluntarily. You can't get too hard on them, honestly, or kids will say, screw you, this guy's not nice, I'm out of here, I can play football without you. So there's always this fine line of like, push them, hold them accountable, but you don't have to be a dick about it.
Well, you know, I think we've tiptoed into this a little bit. I know you and I have, Ryan, on sidebar conversations, and I think with Casey and Jeremy have talked about this a little bit too. But I think of coaching in general, and I'll go into like wrestling coaching, because I've had 9 years now of experience in the youth program. And we're a big youth program. I think at our peak we had like 7 or 8 of us that were coaching. So you have different personalities that come from the different, like you said, they're parroting what they grew up with, right?
Yeah.
And you got the guys that like the only way I know how is like yell all the time, right? And I look back and the as I started coaching, the guy that I would fall back on most was Marty, and how I mean I know Marty could yell, he did, but it wasn't all the time. And if you do it all the time, I always kind of, I guess I've developed that approach too. If you do it all the time, people just get numb to it. Because that's a hot-head coach, right? But if you remain more cool, chill, kids listen better because it's different. I found that out like right away. And then when you finally do have to raise your voice because things are going to get out of hand, they're like, oh crap, like needle off the record. Time for me to, kind of lock it in. If Nick's getting pissed, then maybe we do need to show out.
Marty was a lot like Dale Lennon at UND, firm but fair, and he treated you respectfully. And when you needed your butt chewed, you got it. Like when he raised his voice, everybody listened because it was like, oh, yeah, we had that one coming.
Yeah.
And if you're on 11 all the time, right? I think it just you're tuned out sooner rather than later.
Absolutely.
And I don't know. I think a lot of it too is like you have to meet each athlete where they're at too, or each patient where they're at, right? Like some people, like, this goes back to college too, but we had some people that you could grab them by the jersey and be like, get your shit together, man. You suck. Like, and then you had the same, teammate that you did that, and they just shrunk down,
shut
and
down.
It was just going to be like they were going to be off the rest of the day at least, if not the whole rest of the week. So you had to know those people that you could do that with.
Absolutely.
And then also those other people that you needed to maybe have a little bit more of a softer touch with, and if you miss out on that, right? If you have too soft of a touch with the person that you could say like, hey, get your shit together, like you run the risk of losing their respect too, right? Like, it's just, it's all like, at the end of the day, to me, it's all building relationships, right? And like, just like as far as like friendships, right? Like you don't talk to every friend the same way, right? You don't talk to every family member the same way. So it's just being able to be kind of in tune to that and find what that person needs at that time. So I thought it's a really cool resource. I'm a nerd. I like to read books, preferably leather bound, but Brett Bartholomew, he's got a book, Conscious Coaching. So he comes at more at it from like the training background, but just he even goes in and breaks down like some different personality types, and if somebody's not, it's actually called The Art and the Science of Building Buy-in, right? And so like you mentioned that earlier, Nick, and for somebody that doesn't have that maybe natural skill set or those communication skills, like it's a great way to build that up, to build awareness but then you still got to do, right? Like being a parrot forever doesn't work either. You still got to do and find those cues. And I don't know, I think just be a constant learner, because you're going to find a cue that works great for somebody, but a cue that, like you said, falls on deaf ears for somebody else. So you got to have that ability to go to the file cabinet and pull that correct one out.
And it's funny, your perspective, right? You're going to meet people where they are. And I was at one time too much of a drill instructor, and I've lightened up, but you got to remember some of these kids, there's bigger issues in life. And when they show up for when they show up for Little League football, that's the one time that an adult pays attention to them and shows compassion or shows interest in what they're doing. And sadly, they might not have had a hot meal and their parents didn't tell them to take a shower, and they don't have a lot of things. So you keep the right perspective. It is, everybody loves to win. It is more fun, but it is just a game.
Correct.
There's kids that show up there, and I find a reason to get to buy him a Gatorade because I don't know if his parents have ever bought him one. So hey, good job, buddy. You're being a good, he can't play football very well. He's not the star of the show, but you're like, hey, you're being a good teammate.
Yeah.
And yada, yada, yada. You earned yourself a Gatorade today.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's amazing how a Gatorade will get kids' attention. Hey, when you're
to a kid,
D,
to the right kid, that might make all the difference in the world too. You might have just lifted them up completely. Out of whatever.
And you might not find. You talk about thankless, right? Like you might not find that out until 20 years down the road.
Sure.
When they're like, man, that was a turning point for me.
Yeah.
Like I can't believe you showed me that kind. And it is like you said, great perspective thing to just say like, it is bigger than just the numbers, just bigger than wins and losses. It's just part of that human experience. A really cool part, but keeping it in perspective, and that can be a struggle in youth sports and high school sports and at any level.
And certain kids can do that, but I think most, I've known a couple kids that are like special kids that just have like some emotional maturity and social skills combined, and they can communicate really well. And you're always like, wow, this, show gratitude, things like that. But I'd say the overwhelming majority, and I fell into this too, where you're kind of socially awkward. You're not used to receiving praise at all. So then how do you ever give it, right? And I think that was like a big thing. And then I look back and I'm like, oh man, I have so many positive role models. I'm not saying not perfect role models, but positive ones, right? That I stole this from them, and I took this from them, and I modeled that from this other guy. And when so Ryan, you know my cousin Eric, who passed away from ALS a couple of years ago, right?
Yep.
And when I talked to him, he was also like our assistant wrestling coach. Ted was our head coach for like one season, our junior year. And he was kind of in the middle throes of that battle. I think he just got into like the power chair. We were talking, and I just wanted to let him know he was like going in my senior year. Mark was the head guy now, and Eric was the assistant, and which was a good move, good positive move. But we were heading into a tournament up in Harvey, and I had to wrestle Brandon Lemur for like the 5th time that year. And he pulled me aside and just gave me a good legitimate speech before I had to wrestle him in the finals, right? And it at the time, man, then I go out and get my ass kicked, right? Didn't matter.
I feel bad. I did that to everybody.
So that's the spoiler alert, right? And the guy goes on to be like an All-American multiple times over. So I don't know. But it was like the one time I actually stepped out on the mat against him that whole entire season where I felt like I had any confidence, right? And I'm really glad that I got to share that with Eric, And one thing that he said, he was kind of like tearing up, and he was telling me about how he was just overwhelmed with how many people, like after he was diagnosed, told him these great stories like that, right? And that really stuck with me. Like, man, and I still don't do it consistently, but I gotta provide more gratitude because you never know, right? And in his situation, it's like, why the hell does it take like, a terrible diagnosis to get people to like come out and like pat you on the back and tell you, hey, you did this really well today, or you told me this, right? And you never know when that opportunity is, right? And I don't know, here we are, we're at generations have passed, and now we're at that point where we're bringing up new generations, coaching young kids and trying to instill some of those values too. It's like kind of a mind game, but one I think we can win and do better
at. Yeah.
Wow, that
was heavy.
Deep. That got heavy. I wasn't trying.
You don't have any good way to segue into
comedy. It's not funny anymore, guys. It stops.
Way to go, Nick. Now I miss him.
Stops there. Continues over here. That's the old school. All right. So, awesome. Thank you so much, Ryan. Thank you for just kind of being a cool dude, coming on here, sharing everything, your experiences and your viewpoints on these things.
He's just been so nice because we were in each other's weddings.
That's true too. Yes.
Not to each other, but
That was
Larry's
that's how I remembered, and just so the listeners know this too, that's how I remembered you moved to Colorado, because this dude like went straight from my bachelor party, and I think you drove all the way to Colorado from Minneapolis like that next day.
I was moving up to Colorado that weekend, and
that's
I hit the Dusty Trail after that.
Yeah, because you had to fly in for the actual wedding like a few weeks later. Yeah. That was cool shit. So here we are though. We're on a top five. Now what we do here, we do a little round robin. So we go kind of in ascending order from 5 down to 1. So everybody will give I'll give my 5, you'll give your 5, Jeremy will give his 5, Casey will give his 5, then each one of us are 4 till we land on them number 1s. All right. Sound good?
I like it.
All right. So who would like to go first this week?
Mine's pretty generic. I'll go first.
Right.
It wasn't joking when I talked about IMDb. My list actually from 5 to 1 perfectly follows IMDb scores from lowest to highest. Wasn't by plan, but my number 5 from 2001 was a little ditty by the name of Zoolander. Yeah. It was I can't say I was a big Ben Stiller guy when this movie came out, or an Owen Wilson guy. Kind of my first real foray into both of those guys. And it was just dumb enough. You know, I was a big David Duchovny guy. His part of that movie is phenomenal. I love that part. You know, it's just this overarching story, so stupid and just ridiculous. Can't even laugh. You know, his dad plays awesome. His talent agent. It's just
John Voight. Yeah,
it's a fun movie. I like the whole thing. Will Ferrell's character was great. It's one of those first probably Will Ferrell cameos where you're like, that guy just steals the show, whatever he does.
Yeah, so. He did. Yeah, that one for sure.
This whole time period.
He was really on top back then.
Yeah, so this was kind of that, I don't know, probably one of the first movies of that crew, you know, the Wilson, the Ferrell, the Vaughn. So, it started a lot of stuff. I guess only reason it's not higher is it is pretty silly, pretty ridiculous. Some of it doesn't necessarily hold up quite so well, but
it's on my 17 movie short list.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. That's my number 5, Zoolander.
I've got the black lung.
Nice. Well, I can go next. My list, again, I kind of said this before, I fall into this problem sometimes where I have so many to choose from, and then my orders, I don't know, could be arbitrary. It might look totally different in a couple of days, right? But I'm going to kick off mine number 5 with a movie from 2002 called Van Wilder. The movie that put Ryan Reynolds on the map. I felt it was fresh at the time, extremely quotable. I mean, his delivery to me, I mean, he could still give me a chuckle now and again, but I feel like he's been doing the same thing for 20 some odd years now. Playing kind of the same type of stuff, but back then it was so fresh, so much fun. It felt like he's always kind of winking at you as the audience, everything's just a big joke and I'm a smart ass and things are fun. And it was great. Cal Penn's really funny, you know, in his first flick, playing Taj. Just a really fun movie, fun little story, you know, got to grow up sometime, you know. But, nice little tip of the cap cameo by Tim Matheson playing his dad, the same head character from Animal House. So, that's my number 5, National Lampoon's Van Wilder, 2002.
That's Tara Reid, right?
Yeah.
Her at that party at the end, that little white outfit in the Hawaiian number.
Oh,
that's peak Tara Reid right there.
Yeah, that stands out for me.
I was more of a Shannon Elizabeth guy.
You got another
American
one on the banned VR list.
VR.
This is gonna wonder why all these Tara Reid searches are coming up on Google now.
Jump to the end of Van Wilder.
Yeah, Van Wilder's not on the list, Jeremy. I can watch that on VR all day.
It is now.
Dave.
Thanks for ruining
There were some scenes though topless tutors, so just be careful with Lacey around.
Yeah.
It's a good movie.
Well, Ryan,
Jeremy.
would you like to, or do you want to go in the middle, or do you want to go last, Ryan?
Well, I was going to defer to Jeremy and let him.
Oh, no, I'll go.
Yeah.
All right,
Like that.
all
I like
right.
the confidence.
My number 5 is from 2005. I just hung around between 6.5 and 7.1 for all these movies, but it's not in perfect order. But mine is Dodgeball. So Average Joe's versus Globo Gym.
Good choice.
I used to work for a Globo Gym, so it was very apropos. But
Anytime Fitness.
It's kind of a Globo Gym, isn't it?
Very similar.
You should have seen the painting in my office. But no, in terms of again, just a super silly, funny movie. I always think, damn it, Bernice. They lose in their first round to the Girl Scout troop, but she's taking a low-grade beaver tranquilizer. So just so many, lines like that. If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. That's and it was like a little bit predictive too, right? That was the first hint of ESPN the Ocho, and that came to pass.
Yeah. There is an Ocho now, isn't there?
Yeah, I think they do. It's kind of like a TGIF, I think. But that's my number 5.
Gotcha.
Awkward scene with Lance Armstrong now.
Yeah.
I overcame all that just on will alone.
He still overcame cancer.
And a low-grade beaver tranquilizer.
Steroid and blood doping doesn't cure cancer.
EPO.
Chemically enhanced.
Everybody was doing it though. I'm still a Lance guy. Fine.
Yeah. He did a lot of good things.
Nick brings up his Live Strong bracelet. What do I do with my hands?
Oh man, do you remember when it was such a craze? Like you couldn't get a Live Strong bracelet.
Yeah.
That was a big deal.
We searched
did not
all
actually
over
have
for
one.
those things.
Yeah.
Go to like Jarrell's in Devil's Lake to try to find one because we figured nobody knew they were
Jarrell's.
there.
Sporting Goods.
Yeah. It's not Shields, guys. So
Shields where it's at. You can't beat Shields. Sorry.
They didn't have Live Strong bracelets. Then you could buy those things on. They were selling them online for like $50. It was an unbelievable time.
$50 for a rubber bracelet. All right, Ryan, give us your number 5.
So I made my list based on not IMDb stats or anything. It was more like belly laughs and spit takes, and like,
there you go.
How much did the 20-year-old version of me love this movie? So at number 5, I have a very underrated Jim Carrey film, Me, Myself, and Irene.
Ooh.
The character that he played, Hank, was raunchy, and it's a great show.
Yeah.
Irene, why am I being like I was up all night having sex? Right? That scene. Yeah. How do you not fall out of your chair and die laughing?
Yeah, and he's like, "Is this little guy? Did you guys have a good time?"
Yeah.
Like, that wasn't for me.
On TV, they got to blur it out.
Yeah.
Then he walks away later.
You're right, man. I totally forgot about that one.
Yeah,
that is a very, very underrated Jim Carrey.
It was higher on my list, and I struggled with it, but it came in at 5. Yeah,
that's a fairly brother movie, right?
Yep. And those guys were like on top too for a while. They were so sharp, and that's an awesome movie. Yeah. Hank, and what was the other name?
His alter ego was Hank, and oh my goodness, the nice version of him.
Yeah.
I can't. It escapes me. It'll come to me later when it doesn't matter.
So, like,
what are you looking at? 4 eyes.
You watch this movie like 20 some odd years later, and because I think it came out in 2000, right? And it's like there's so many lines you get in trouble these days. Like the whole subplot with his wife cheating on him, and he's got the 3 black boys that he just denies that
it's completely
they're mine. I love it.
Yeah. Raises his 3 boys. Yeah.
Charlie
Bailey Gates.
Charlie Bailey Gates.
Yes.
Damn, Charlie, them boys' dicks as big as them sausages.
That's a good movie. That is a hit. When he has to kill that cow, and then later on they're like, that
And
sick son
fails
of a
miserably.
that sick son of a bitch put how many rounds in that cow? It barely lived.
Yeah, it's still. Oh, I gotta watch that again. Great movie. Great call, Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Mr. Hansen. On to your number 4.
From 2001, IMDb rating 6.8. Zoolander was 6.5. I didn't say that. This was, I guess maybe you'd consider this a sequel. I don't know. It was Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. I was a huge Clerks guy, huge Mallrats guy. Not a huge Chasing Amy guy. But this one hit me in all the right numbers. It was ridiculous. All the characters just played absolute characters of themselves to the 10th degree. The subplots were ridiculous. Every scene in that movie is ridiculous. It's so disjointed. It's just like a bunch of fever dream scenes with them. But at the time, I loved it. I thought it was the most hilarious thing I'd ever seen. All the way through the end, lots of cameos from George Carlin to Mark Hamill, Diedrich Bader, just lots of cool cameos. Everybody was having fun. Tim Meadows, he's got not Tim Meadows.
No, Chris Rock.
No, yeah, he's in it too.
Yeah.
Tracy Morgan. I love that scene. When he's like, "Give him the map, Scott." Like, it's just stupid little things like that. The whole thing. Yeah, loved it, start to finish. I still enjoy it. I think it's still a funny movie. But
yeah, I can't say much more.
Yeah, pretty much the only thing I don't like about it is Kevin Smith's wife. I think her character kind of sucks in that and is out of place. But
she's not in it much though. She's just one of the girls.
Yeah, she's one of the girls.
Yeah,
she just, compared to everybody else, including your fave, Shannon Elizabeth, right?
Which might come up later.
Yeah, she just doesn't. She just doesn't hold up. So that's the only reason it's maybe not a little higher. Is it's a little disjointed. Feels like the editing got a little sloppy on it, and then I think she brought it down a little bit. But other than that, it was great. Sean William Scott, his cameo was sweet. He's like playing the guitar.
Yeah, Will Ferrell.
Yeah, Will Ferrell. Yeah, he's good too.
Agent Will and Ollie.
It's one of those I'm gonna have to rewatch.
Definitely.
Yeah,
man, it's good.
Yeah,
good call.
Good call. Great
probably
call.
Next to Dogma, probably my favorite Kevin Smith look.
Dogma's one I got to go back and watch again too.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if you have ever tried to watch Dogma. If you don't have it on DVD, you're in trouble because Harvey Weinstein is holding that movie hostage. He has all the rights to it. Yeah, can't get it on streaming. You can't buy it on DVD anymore. So
yeah, because he did all those finding it. All those initial ones were with like Miramax, weren't they? Yeah. Dirty Pig. God dang.
For whatever reason.
So he's holding a hostage. He's like not going to release it till somebody has sex with him.
Well, I think like that was his move. I think at one point he offered to sell it to Kevin Smith, but Kevin Smith didn't buy it, and now he's regretting it because now he's in jail and he can't.
Now Smith does like horror movies too. It's kind of
his big deal now.
Him and like Jordan Peele. Well, Jordan Peele obviously is like super popular right now, but. Now these comedy people have gone in and made like pretty kick-ass horror movies. Like Tusk is creepy as hell and all messed up.
Gross.
Yeah.
But for sure.
Yeah.
That's my number 4, Jay and Silent Bob.
I love it. My number 4. I've quoted it a couple times on here. Just a classic fun movie that I got into in college. Usually it was like it's not so much when you come home from having a fun night out in town, but when you're kind of like working off a hangover the next day, you just want something to giggle and laugh at. It is from the year 2000. It is The Ladies' Man, starring Tim Meadows.
Oh boy,
I don't know. It just does it for me on so many levels. Tim Meadows was like the role he was made to play for. I would think. He's solid in other stuff, but man, like it's just such a funny character. Leon Phelps is great. He's fantastic. And you also got Will Ferrell in there.
Oh yeah.
Whose name's come up a bunch of times already. And we talked.
He was a wrestler.
Yeah, Greco-Roman wrestling. And
when he's got that little pistol and he's holding the barrel, I love that scene. That kills me.
Covered up with baby oil, and he's giving his little monologue to all the guys, and they're just blindly following him along. I mean, just some fun stuff. The whole scene, the pickled food challenge, like who can eat more of it, and they break them all out. That's great stuff too. I mean, Billy D. Williams has a cameo. Just a great, fun movie. Ladies Man, 2000.
That's definitely a movie I don't think you could do a sequel to, because I think they used everything in that movie.
Yeah, they took a skit that was like very small, but
stretch that out.
Yeah, they stretched a 5-minute out to 90, and I liked it. I love that movie.
I do. It's very simple, but still, I watched it a couple of years back. I think during COVID, still laughed a bunch. So, incidentally, if we're counting IMDb scores, it's a paltry 5.2.
Yeah. I just saw a list where it was one of the worst SNL movies of all time.
I need to build some bots and have them rate it for me.
I gotta go on there right now and throw that thing a 10.
Oh, so there's 410 ratings to it.
All right. My number 4 has already been mentioned, so I won't belabor it too long. 2001, 6.5, Zoolander.
Jeremy.
Again, I don't think it was all that silly, right? There's pretty deep assassination plot. It makes me wonder every time.
Relax.
Like, every time you hear like news about like Kanye West, like you wonder now, right? Like, is he some secret agent? But again, so many, just funny ripping on, fashion. Like, they died in a freaky deaky gasoline fight accident, and right, like just so many quotable lines in that. So hilarious, a lot of great cameos. So
and they kind of like created in a way that was ahead of the. You remember when distressed jeans became huge and like all the rips and holes came back? It's like that started happening. It's so quotable, and it was like Michelle had to be derelict every time we see it.
He's so hot right now.
He's so hot. God, those quotes were so great.
I know, having the last name Hansen, my friends always call me Han Suckass. It's very pleasant.
Yeah.
Very nice.
It's unfortunate, really.
Michelle, one of the lines that Michelle and I both I absolutely love, because incidentally, like I think Zoolander might be the first movie we ever rented and watched together when we were starting dating.
Did you rewind it before you returned it?
It was on DVD. Cutting edge technology. You know what?
Did you make sure you put it back on the title menu before you returned it?
And it was that, that scene where they're doing like the award show in the beginning is so funny. And they do like the little montages of each nominated person, and and Hansel's doing his thing, and he's like Sting, he's a hero of mine. He's like, the music he makes, I don't really listen to it, but the fact he makes it, I respect that. All these things and it encapsulates those two so well, because they think they're deep and they think they're like, just like really special people, but they're not, they're just funny.
Incredibly good looking people.
Yes. Awesome choice.
Yeah.
All right, Ryan.
My number 4, I have a feeling this is going to be popular. I already mentioned Dodgeball.
Cool.
So not to dwell on it too long, but Vince Vaughn is the lovable slacker. The only other thing that maybe Jeremy forgot to touch on was Jason Bateman as Pepper Brooks. Oh, Pepper. My goodness. That is just fantastic.
Revived his career.
Oh,
it really did.
We talked about that one time on the pod, didn't we? Yeah.
I think so. Crazy.
So,
Pepper needs a new pair of underwear.
Yeah. Just very quotable, and a lot of spit takes, I think. A lot of big deep down belly laughs. So that's definitely on the top 5.
Yeah, Bold Move Cotton is maybe one of the most quoted lines of any comedy movie.
Yeah. Very good. Awesome. Casey, that brings us to the
number
top 3.
From 2001, 7.0 on IMDb. It was a movie from a bunch of unknown guys called Super Troopers. When this thing dropped, it was, like I said, these unknown guys, the movie was really unknown. I don't think it got a lot of like advertising, and it was it was one of these movies where you felt like a bunch of friends got together and just made a movie, and just messed around the whole time. And again, the plot's pretty thin, but they do a great job of just moving on from joke to joke to joke and building up this connection with the whole crew. And I still a great movie. Watchable, rewatchable.
It feels like you got together with your college buddies and screwed around and had fun.
Just record it.
Just recorded all the dumb stuff you thought about. Like, I don't know, I want a liter of cola. Like, it's just stupid stuff, you know. Just love it. The getting pulled over to start the movie with the stone kids, it just starts off really great. And just goes from
Nosberries taste like snozzberries.
It was
you can't pull over any farther. It was fun. There wasn't a whole lot of cop-based comedy other than Beverly Hills Cop up to that point. So
for real. You know, when we throw together this list, I mean, holy cow, I had a long short list this week, and this might have been the golden era for comedies, honestly.
It's a lot of good ones
tough
for
to
sure.
narrow down.
Yeah, really hard to drill down. That's an awesome choice. I mean, that was on my short. Everything has been said. Nobody's said anything that hasn't at least like made my short. My number 3 is very similar to that, Casey, in the fact that it does feel like a bunch of people just slapped this together. Some friends, plots a little all over the place. It is from 2001, and it is Saving Silverman, starring, the comedy troupe of Steve Zahn, Jason Biggs, and the movie that I feel really put Jack Black, really erupted him into the the star that he is now. Just freaking funny as hell, and starts with a very simple friend, dude bro plot, like 3 guys. So for some reason they love Neil Diamond. I mean, that alone is really, that sets up so many funny jokes. Awesome line by Neil at the end of the movie where he's like, I recognize you guys. You're the one sending me all those naked pictures. Steve Zahn's like, what? You didn't do that. Before he can even finish, Jack Black's like, sorry. And I think but then they lose their one best friend to like a chick, and she turns out to be, kind of a bee. So what do? They decide to kidnap her. I mean, it's just silliness and dumb crap, but so many quotable lines. R. Lee Ermey, I think, steals about every scene he's in.
Yeah, for sure.
Hats off to you boys. That's the perfect crime. So I love that movie. I could still watch it over and over and over again. My number 3, Saving Silverman, 2001.
Awesome. My number 3 hails from 2004. It was a 7.1 out of 10. I don't know how it's this low, but it is Anchorman. Man, like, what a funny look into that time, right? Like, or things that we think are funny right now, right? Like, all the sexism, just like the male chauvinistic viewpoint. Again, I'm sure there'll be some creative young person that'll say like, oh man, I can't believe what they were doing in the early 2000s, right? But in terms of, Will Ferrell is just, again, so quotable. Hilarious when Baxter gets punted off the bridge, and right, like that's like
Jack Black cameo.
the whole part.
This breakfast burrito is so filling.
But it is filling.
But right, all the different fights that they get into between the networks. Steve Carell, Brick is hilarious. Like,
awesome.
That got out of hand. Yeah, Brick threw a trident. He killed the guy.
I want to find a safe house.
So
lay low for a while.
Again, I've never seen the second one. Never had the desire to, because I felt like the first one was so perfect. But
wise choice.
That's my number 3, Anchorman.
Awesome. Hard to beat, man.
On my honorable mention, it's hard to narrow it down to just 5.
Yeah.
My 3, I gotta go with Will Ferrell, Luke Wilson, Vince Vaughn, all-star cast. old school.
Yes.
I mean, Blue, You're My Boy, and then you got Will Ferrell singing Dust in the Wind, and I mean, this just happened to be on TV the other day at my sister and brother-in-law's place, and even my dad was having a good belly laugh. Like, oh yeah. Just incredible. You know, it just happened to be the scene where they're down in the basement, and they're like, Blue, are you sure you're up for this? Yeah, just ring the bell. Love it.
Yeah. That I love, another cameo by Sean William Scott, where he's like the, white trashy, whatever.
Oh yeah, the animal
neck. You got a dart in your neck. That's awesome. And then it segues into him crashing into the pool and they're hello darkness, my old friend.
That was
great pick.
Yeah,
it was great. Yeah,
Jeremy Pivens too, right? He's the dean.
Yes,
and he's really good at that.
Great villain.
Yeah, he pulls awesome that choice. To the top for sure.
Well, the opening scene, how they end up together in the first place. I mean, that's the comedy right out the gate.
Oh yeah.
Oh
yeah. I mean,
yeah.
The doorbell rings.
Yeah.
Yeah, when he hops in the cab and he's like, "Hey, my seatbelt's broken. What do you suggest?" Like that line kills me every time.
Yeah,
can't repeat it on pod. I could for historical purposes, Nick, I guess. But
it's an edgy comedy. It was like pretty edgy, darker too. I mean, at moments, like the whole setup and everything. Like you're right. Yeah. Todd Phillips has that.
Yeah, great choice. Moving on to number twos. My number two from 2005, 7.0 on IMDb. Start to see a repeat of characters here. Vince Vaughn, Owen Wilson. It's Wedding Crashers.
On the short list.
I snuck into this movie, and it was awesome. It was a great sneak in. The movie was packed. Laughed the whole time. I mean, just the premise was okay, but the characters, like all the characters, that family was so crazy. Probably Bradley Cooper must be one of his first breakout roles. Playing a character I believe is named Zach. I don't understand. That must be short for something.
Zach. I think it's Zach, but it sounds like Zach. Yeah.
Okay.
I think I actually looked that up because I agreed with the same thing. Like, why would a guy's name be Zach? But
okay. Yeah, it's just lots of funny scenes. Like you said, the tummy stick scene with Vince Vaughn's unbelievable. He's like, "Get out of here, just go!" Like Vince Vaughn does such a good backup role in that movie. When he sits down for breakfast and he's just piling food on his plate, he's like, "I'm gonna be here for you, but I need a moment. I'm just gonna recharge my batteries." Like, I just love that scene because we've probably all been there with a friend where you're like, it's time to go, and they're like, "No, dude, we gotta stay."
Just getting good.
Got a stage 4 clinger.
Okay, I guess I'll do it. So, and then even the end, the end gets a little sloppy, but I think that again, Will Ferrell, another cameo. That's they build him up through the whole movie, and then when you finally see him, you're like, "Oh, it's Will Ferrell." He's like, "Oh man, funeral crashing is the way to go."
You believe that? He's on a hang glider. He's like, leave me out.
What an idiot.
God, more for us, right?
And when he goes to see Owen Wilson and he's got the suicide book and he's like, "Are you okay?" He's like, "Oh, I'm fine, man." And then 5 minutes later, he's like, "Dude, I'm reading Don't Kill Yourself books. I'm not okay." I know it should be funny, but just that delivery is funny. I don't know.
Definitely. I feel like that was Vince Vaughn's movie. Like, if you took him out, I think the movie loses so much.
Oh, 100%.
His energy is on another level in that flick.
Yeah, he's not really the main guy, but probably one of the best supporting comedy roles.
Definitely. Yeah.
And just for production's sake, it is Sack
Lodge.
Sack Lodge.
Yeah, it is Sack. Yeah, Sack Lodge. But
SAK?
SACK. Sack.
Wow. Sack.
Okay.
He's a Sack.
Yeah,
real Sack.
Yeah.
Must be a strong Eastern name, huh? Eastern.
Yeah. So at the end when he's like, when he gets out of that whole art show in the middle of the night, Owen's asking him, he's like, and what's the matter? Soft pillow last night? He's like, yeah, it could have been a soft pillow, or maybe it was the gay midnight art show that took place in my room.
It's just
that's just awesome movie. And
so
Christopher Walken, how could we not mention Christopher Walken?
True.
Just like he can make everything a little bit better too.
The grandma's great in there too.
Yeah.
Like I said,
myself.
Everybody, the characters were so fun. Everybody was just fun in that movie.
Great
the plot wasn't great, but yeah, the characters were all unique and fun. And there wasn't a bad character in that movie. Really.
Can we all agree, like peak Rachel McAdams?
Yeah, pretty close, I guess, unless you're a Notebook guy.
No, this peak, right?
No.
I don't know.
I'll take Wedding Crashers over.
I'll take one. Okay, one
Notebook
vote for
every
one
time.
vote. Okay, Ryan and I, 2 votes for Crashers.
It's a toss up for me. Don't get this removed from my VR list. You guys stop now.
Well, I think it's pretty safe and clean.
She's in Doctor Strange too, right? Like, so you're okay.
Yeah,
you're okay.
Just move beyond.
She's not gonna ban Disney Plus on the VR goggle.
Yeah, you're fine. You're fine. Yeah.
Good call, guys.
Great choice. Awesome movie.
Number 2.
My number 2 has already been said, so I'll keep it somewhat brief. It is from 2001. It is Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
What?
I
thought I might be the only person with that one.
And Ryan knows me. I was a movie nerd growing up. I mean, so like, oh my God, anybody who loved movies, you got to love this flick because it makes fun of so many. The approach to it, you nailed so many points, Casey. The only one I want to add is when he gets on the internet and Jay writes his diatribe. That might be one of the funniest
in the fast food restaurant,
like angry rants ever. And the fact that he thinks he's being so funny and so badass all at the same time. It's great. Cameos were awesome. You nailed them all. Ben Affleck, Matt Damon come in. Did they come in twice? Because there's different characters.
Affleck does at least.
Yeah. He does because he plays the character from Chasing Amy, but then he comes in and plays the character from plays himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're filming Good Will Hunting too.
Hunting season.
Yeah,
when they go visit him the first time and he's talking about people on the internet and Jay's like, internet, what the fuck's the internet? That's such a funny line to me.
Such a movie of its time though, right?
Yeah.
Like right as all that stuff was becoming important and so ahead of its time. Like how people on the internet can now basically affect
trolls,
what movies are going to be made and stuff like that, what's going to be successful. So awesome movie, lots of fun. That's my number 2, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
My number 2 has also already been said. It's old school. Again, in terms of like at that time, so many like big quotes, right? Like, yeah, you're my boy, Blue. Frank, what are you doing? We're just drinking through the quad to the gymnasium. Right? Like, just hilarious. Again, that to me is like pretty close to peak Will Ferrell right there. Hilarious when they're going through the competitions at the end and he's debating James Carville. Just a lot of good stuff in that movie. So, there's like the occasional like 10 minutes here and there where you're like, man, maybe we should go back to college and have, we should start our own fraternity. And then you're like, no, right?
At last one weekend.
Yeah, right. You're like, no way.
Sneak out the back door and go home for a nap.
Right? I'm ready to leave. No, it's just getting started. Yeah, then it brings you right into Wedding Crashers. But, no, that's my number 2, old school.
Awesome. Right on. My number 2, I went with I think the test of time, right? It's still relevant, still good. I can sit and watch it with my kids. Will Ferrell as a man-child in Elf. I know this isn't a Christmas movie list,
You're my guy.
and I don't know if it needs to be quite that high, but there's just it's so many different things about it. And now I watch it with my kids and I still laugh just as hard. I think that's why it's ranked so high. You know,
it's a great point. I can't watch any of my movies with my kids yet. So.
Agreed.
Peter Dinklage. I think that was my first exposure to him. I don't know if that was his
you're
first
an
big
angry
break.
elf.
Yeah, right. See, that was.
Yeah. Who would have seen that he's had the career that he's had too?
Right. I mean, awesome. Everything from they almost sneak it in. It wasn't even part of the dialogue. He just answers his dad's phone and says, "Buddy the elf, what's your favorite color?" I mean, just random stuff like that. You know, it's almost like
I love your dress. It's very purpley.
Yeah.
So innocent.
Yeah. Yeah, he did. He was on another level back then. And I think he just maybe like everything, maybe you just get a little overexposed over time. Like, you know, too many films over like a 10-year span. And I don't know. He still shows up every now and again. He could still give me a laugh.
Yeah.
You know what he's in. More in the small doses yet.
Yeah, he just struggled to make that transition to a little more serious stuff. Although Stranger Than Fiction, I thought was quite good.
Mm-hmm. That was good. He's had a handful that were pretty decent, you know, but yeah. I think
never
the comedy
make a hit
stuff,
with that stuff.
I can't think of anything. What's he done that's been like super funny lately?
Nothing. I think after Sherlock and Holmes, he gave up on movies completely. He called her. That movie is horrible.
Sherlock, that's right. Sherlock.
He did Eurovision in 2020.
Our
Holmes and Watson
really quiet.
was 2018. So
yeah. Well, it happens to everybody, I suppose. Well, happen to us someday.
Yeah, we can't keep this gold forever, guys.
Yeah.
Moving on to my number one from 2004, 7-1. It's been said before. It's Anchorman. And I think I said on the show, I watched this in the theaters. Might have been a moment in time. It was when I was down south by myself. So I was like, I never laughed harder in a movie theater to this thing. And it was, I don't know, it was weird because me and my friends probably had pretty weird senses of humor. You know, always that situational stuff when you're talking to each other and making up just the absolute most ridiculous scenarios you could think of in the situations you were in. And that movie was just that, the whole thing. It was like, how can we take a scene and try to make it as funny as we possibly can, no matter how ridiculous it gets? And they did that over and over again. Every scene, it felt like they tried to leech out every ounce of comedy from it. And typically they succeeded. Trying to think of scenes in that movie that fell flat, and I don't think there was a whole lot of them.
No.
Santiago.
Right. Nothing that
everything had a purpose. I mean, every line has like a purpose and can make you laugh. You get to know the character. They establish the characters like right away, and then the rest of the movie just carries it through.
And I think, unlike a lot of the movies on my list, Anchorman, I feel like builds up all the way through the end. A lot of comedies have that like second half slump where like it's really funny when they're setting up all the characters and the jokes, and then you have to like wrap the story up and you're just tying up loose ends, and they kind of slow down at the end. Like Anchorman, like to me is just, there's not a huge lull. Maybe the middle lulls a little bit. But then then the end
chugging
of
milk.
Just a run to the end with jokes and jokes and jokes. He gets the team back together and blows the horn. And the zoo scene could be really dumb, and they try to make it really dumb, but it works somehow with Baxter with the Bears. And, again, Vince Vaughn, holding the ladder. Whole thing could be dumb, but it just all the way through the end. That movie for me just doesn't stop. It's nonstop funny. So
a lot of good. There's a lot of comedic power in that movie. It really is a lot of talent. So
tons of talent. We haven't mentioned, like, I know somebody mentioned Steve Carell, but we didn't mention Paul Rudd.
Nope.
David Koechner.
Yeah.
And you got Ben Stiller cameo. We talked about Vince Vaughn. I mean, just it was loaded, top to bottom,
and a lot of guys on the way up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely caught a lot of those guys at or near the peak.
Yep.
Yeah. Hungry as they say.
You got it.
Yeah. That's a good segue to mine, because I was on the fence, and I've had Anchorman at like the top of my other list, stuff like that. And I felt like I should have it in my top 5. But I almost needed to keep something fresh, and here we are. There's nothing else to say about it. So my number 1, and being honest with where I was at the time in my life, I loved the hell out of this movie. I still really, really enjoy it a lot. We talked about it in the opener. It is American Pie 2. And I think there was some factor in there with just where I was in life. Like the same exact age as those guys, being in, I think it came out the summer after my freshman year of college. So that kind of just right away, you have a connection with that group, right? Movie kicks, and it's just like every other American Pie. They did the first one, and they've done with everyone. It's almost like an SNL cold open. It's like there's something bad's going to happen to Jim, and it's pretty fun. His parents walk in on him in the dorm, finally ready to make it happen. And, his dad, Eugene Levy's even better in this one than he was in the first one. And I think those are the key points. Eugene Levy, there's a little bit more of him. He's better. They fleshed out the Stifler character, gave Sean William Scott a whole lot more to do. And I think this is the peak movie for him, because by the third one, they just went off the rails with it. They just became a total idiot. But this one, he's still like relatable.
Mm-hmm.
And he has so many lines. Him and the dynamic with him and Finch works. The dynamic with him and being excited about the lesbians work. That stuff's super funny. Man, I just really enjoy that movie a whole lot. So that's my number 1. I think I saw it like 2, maybe even 3 times in the theater back in the day when it came out.
Very good.
It.
Yeah, and if I'm gonna be honest, got rid of the bad people from the first one, like with Chris Klein, right?
He was in it.
Well, was he in it?
Oz was in it. He's just not. I mean, that story kind of. I think they did a wise move with like which stories they could backburner. Him and the same chick from American Beauty, Mira, not Sorvino, but whatever her name was at the time.
Yeah.
But she's still in there, but she's like not really in much because she's in Europe.
Okay. Yeah, I just don't remember him in that movie much.
Yep. And they bring back Stifler's mom at the end.
That was a great callback for sure.
So you take the stuff from the first one, but they actually did improve it. They were able to make it improve without feeling like it's total retread either.
You sold me. It's higher on my list now.
I love it.
It's a good movie. Yeah, I remember it came out in the summer of that year because we were hanging out with my buddies going to watch it too. And yeah, it was a fun movie. It's like Jeremy said about Old School. It's like, man, you can watch that and be like, I wish we could just hang out with my buddies on a beach house and just party all summer long. Like,
yeah. Somebody
then you're like, maybe a day.
Yeah, right. then I need a nap.
Funny story for you, Jeremy. I believe it's the first one takes place in where they're all from is the fictitious town of Grand Harbor, which is actually supposed to be Grand Haven.
Haven, yeah, right down the road.
Which is where the guys who made it they're from that area. So
are they really?
How far is that from Green Bay?
Or no, I'm sorry. Grand Haven. Okay, I'm getting it backwards. The second one's supposed to. It's like basically supposed to be Grand Haven, but it's not Grand Haven. Okay, and they're actually from Grand Rapids.
Oh, okay.
But they call it Great Falls. I think in the first one when they're in high school. Yeah,
I didn't know
they
that.
went to. Yeah. So in the first one, they went to high school at East Great Falls, Michigan, but it's actually in real life, it's East Grand Rapids.
All right.
There you go. Really close to you, bro.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Right down the road. Just a hop, skip, and a jump.
Can you drive to the beach house? Can you see it?
You know what? I should see if that actually happened. I mean, I should see if it's there. Somebody's got to know.
I assume somebody's in California, but
yeah.
Michigan's way better than California.
Yeah, California is the Michigan of the West, as they say.
What?
I've always heard that.
I don't think you can get more west than California.
I'm going to move on to my number.
Yes,
number one.
On that note.
So actually mine has already been said as well. always interesting, like the perspective that we take. Bless you. From our lists, right? And a lot of people, yeah, hey, this is where I was at that time, or I thought this was really funny at this time. I shared a viewpoint with Ryan here. I went with Elf. Yeah, and it's probably
so sweet.
No, I mean, on my list, right? I look back and I'm like, man, these are funny movies. But I bet I watch Elf 10 times a year during Christmas. And I just, like, every single time it's on, right? Like, I maybe don't sit, cover to cover on it, if I can say that for a movie. But it's like on in the background, really feel good vibes with it. Something you can watch with kids. But still, like you said, get a good chuckle throughout the film.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's my number one.
I believe
James
they call it
for
title
sure.
to credit, Jeremy.
Rest
It
in
is, that's
peace,
what they say.
I've heard it
Rest
both ways.
Rest in peace, James Caan.
So my number one might be up for some debate. I don't know if you're gonna like it. It's probably not. So first of all, I want to address my honorable mention. Nobody said anything about 40-Year-Old Virgin.
Actually, that was on my honorable list.
It's on my list too.
So this isn't necessarily the funniest movie, but I think it's the best. Some people call it a comedy. It's my number one of all time. Brad Pitt, Snatch.
Ooh.
Fight me about it.
Fun.
I don't know.
It's funny. It's funny.
Yeah, and it's not the funniest movie, but it is a great movie. I love how the storylines come together in the end. And
I don't understand the Brits.
I can't understand
the dialogue
the
is like
sure.
I couldn't follow their accent most of the time. I don't know.
There was digs all over the place. I don't know
well, I love that movie, man. I think it's awesome. And
huge fan of that one.
And it's funny to see Jason Statham. If you go back to that, to who he's become now, it's like a complete character, and now he's just an ass kicker guy. But he started out with just everything was like a smart ass line back, and that was good stuff.
He was a swimmer. You could have strength coached the shit out of him.
Hey, there you
right?
go.
He was like
in Hollywood right
collegiate
now.
swimmer, right?
There you go. You'd be out there personal training him.
Everything from Frankie Four Fingers got a diamond the size of a fist to Frankie, I got a gambling problem, Four Fingers, to I mean the dog at the end, the whole thing. It's this crime, but there's comedy. I don't know. It's just one of my favorites. It's a personal thing. I can't defend it. I don't know how it did on IMDb.
You don't have to. Actually, it might be the top of the whole list. I think I thought it was an 8-1.
It's a guy.
The best movie critically on the list.
Yeah, a lot of those Guy Ritchie, those first few Guy Ritchie movies, people just loved them. Like Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And then that one, and Snap. Yeah, you're right on the money with Brad Pitt role too. He's like a gypsy, right? Gypsy fighter, and
they call it a crime
punch
comedy,
machine
so
gun.
You're safe.
Yeah,
they call it
funny.
Comedy.
All right.
I have to warn you, historically on this show, I once called Ghostbusters a comedy, and Nick pooped on me for about 15 minutes. So.
Yeah, but I'm gonna show our guests.
Yeah, you're way nicer to our guests.
Yeah, you are.
I got really easy.
I had to go call my mom after that episode.
I would have done the same thing for Gigliotti and Brady too.
Mom, will you leave a comment already?
Yeah, and she's like, that Nick Doling is so mean to you. I said, I know.
Oh,
I know, Mom. I could use a hug.
Come on. Is it Wanda?
Yeah, Wanda. You remember? And she's like, honey, that was the top grossing comedy of 1984. I said, I know. I'm trying to
comedy. It's not a pure comedy. It's like I said, greatest comedy, action, sci-fi, fantasy film.
So is Wanda still in the big city of Maddock?
No, she actually moved to Fargo. I got to drop my kids off somewhere. So
okay, sure.
That's what's
my
up.
dad.
I thought if I ever found my way up there, I could stop and have coffee.
Well, she's very pleasant.
Meet the lady who gave birth to a legend.
You can go see my dad. Nitro's still up there.
Is he? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Is he a coffee
That's
drinker?
Mr. Nitro to you.
Yeah, well, yeah,
Yeah.
he loves coffee. You head over to my place across the yard, grab some Folgers, throw it in the coffee maker.
Best part of waking up.
Oh yeah, you guys
Yep.
can have an adventure.
Just making friends.
So yeah. And Nick,
Yeah.
I'm glad you're nicer to our guests.
Yes, I'm working on it.
Yeah. Hopefully it translates someday.
It's gratitude, living with gratitude.
Yeah.
Not a perfect role model, a positive one.
There you
There
go.
you go.
I
Yes,
like
yes. Just trying to be better every day.
It's good.
So.
That's good.
Awesome.
Well, great list, gentlemen. That was fun. Little
Fun.
decent amount of overlap, which I kind of figured, but definitely some variance in our lists. I think pretty much everything. Although Super Troopers on my list didn't make anybody else's list, but most of my
Yeah.
list.
Regrettably,
That was
it
on my
did
short
not.
list too. That was
Yeah, huge short list, like you said, Nick. That is a banger 5-year period for comedies.
Yeah, hats off to Ryan. It was he curated kind of the era. So hats off to you, my boy.
Well, I
Yeah,
couldn't
it is.
talk music. I couldn't keep up with you guys, especially if it's outside of metal. So I had to go with what I knew.
We've done that before. We've done
Follow Jeremy and I's country lists, and you won't feel bad.
no.
that.
You can do a top 5 on anything. You don't need to have any knowledge.
And Jeremy,
I prove it every week.
Jeremy, like inside, he's giggling like a little schoolgirl because we're now deep into the month of October and we haven't done a horror movie list yet.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
he
it was
knows it's coming. It's
one week
coming,
down.
Jeremy.
1 week down, Jeremy.
Oh, the whole rest of the month.
I've got a feeling like my number 5 is going to be Little Mermaid. Man, when Ursula pops on the screen, oh boy!
Oh, the end when she like giganticizes.
Yeah,
Gigantamaxes, as they call it in the Pokemon world.
Yeah,
Things
yeah.
get real. Yeah,
Jump scares all around.
Fear is
Mhm.
subjective.
that's true.
True.
Well, that wraps up episode 38 of PT Shop Talk. Thanks everybody for listening. Like always, questions, comments, lists. You want to be a guest on the show, have ideas for us, hit us up at ptshoptalk@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook. Check us out on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter. All of it's PT Shop Talk. I made it easy for you guys. So until next time, I'm Casey Hansen. With me, as always, is Nick Doling, Jeremy Van Klompenberg, and today's special guest, Ryan Zink. Till next time. Bye.
Peace.